for the city, and I'm here tonight with um, the planning director, Jeff Bagg, our consultant from PVPC, Ted Harvey, DPW director, Greg Nettleman, and our staff engineer, Diane Rossini. Just wanted to thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I know everyone's quite busy, and it's really important for this grant program to have the public participation. So your attendance is very much appreciated. The purpose of tonight's meeting or hearing today is to discuss the implementation of the city's Community Development Block Grant 2020 Coronavirus Microenterprise Assistance Grant Program, and to discuss our application for the FY 2021 Cdbg Grant Program. For the purposes of the hearing, there are going to be two back-to-back hearings, with the application hearing starting and immediately following this performance hearing. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted Harvey, who will talk about the Microenterprise Business Assistance Program.
Great, thanks. So just to reiterate for those of you who are on this Zoom call, so this first part is the public performance hearing, and following it, we'll have the public hearing for the FY21 application. So this, as Jamie mentioned, this is for kind of special CDBG funds that were put out in light of COVID. And the city was awarded $900,000, $780,000 of that was specifically for microenterprise grants to microenterprise businesses in a number of towns, not just Easthampton. So it was Easthampton, Hadley, Hatfield, South Hadley, Granby, who am I forgetting? Southampton and Westhampton. I think I got everybody. Yeah, so that was the award. So that was the only program or the only project that was part of this particular CDBG program. So updates are, we have committed 200 out of that 783,000. So let me back up for a second and I'll say this will be a update and also a, if there are other, I want to put it out there that there is money available. So if people know business owners or, if there are people that are still looking for grant assistance, and it specifically has to be COVID related expenses and losses that these particular grants can help with. So we had $783,000 that were awarded for grants. We've committed to date $207,490. Not all of that has been distributed at this point, but that is what we've committed. It's a little bit of a process between the city and getting the state funds and then signing contracts. There's a bit of some legwork. We were working closely with Valley CDC, who is out of, if people aren't familiar with them, they're a community development corporation out of Northampton, who they have a very strong background in business assistance, and they have been working with us. And so that they are the contact people for this particular grant funding source. As I said, there's still money available. So I know this is being recorded. And then of course, anybody who's on this and would know anybody or just spread the word. And we've been spreading the word for 9 to 12 months now. And we're looking for qualified applicants as well. So it's a little bit of a process going through Valley CDC. It's not because of Valley CDC, but going through them to get to submit an application for this funding. But fairly recently, the number was bumped up to $25,000 max is available. So it's a decent amount of money that is available. I will also just put a plug in. Valley CDC on their website also has, and their staff over there have information and other funding sources. So if this particular program doesn't fit with a particular business, they are very well aware of other federal and state funding sources that continue to be available today. So the only other thing I wanted to say, and then if there are any questions, I can take those, and if not, we can move on to the public hearing, was that this program goes until December 31st of this year. To date, there's been no indication that it will be extended. That could change, and we would make sure everybody would know about that. But right now it goes until December 31st. So there's still lots of time. And like I said, there's definitely money available. And we're always looking for businesses to help out with this funding. So I'll leave it at that. I don't know if anyone from the city or if there's any questions. I don't see anything. So if you want to end this performance here, the other thing I just want to note is, I should have said this at the beginning. So all CDBG grant programs, at least the ones run through Massachusetts, that the competitive ones that this was a part of, there are at least 2 public hearings that are required. So this is the second. We had one when we were originally applying for this funding. So that's public hearing number 1. And then we have a performance hearing. So the next public hearing, when this one ends, and Jamie will open the second one, that will be the first public hearing for the FY21 application, which I'll talk about then. But I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
So if there's no questions or comments about this program and how the city is managing it, then I'll close this public hearing. And it's now 5:10, so we can start. We'll open up the FY 2021 application hearing. So just a little background, the Community Development Block Grant Program, it's a federally funded program that passes money through the state through a competitive grant process to the municipalities. Easthampton is a competitive grant community, meaning we have to apply to the state for funding every year. We don't automatically get it, although there are some communities that do. The projects that we typically look at are typically for infrastructure improvements or for social services, although they can take other forms as well, such as the micro enterprise business program that we're just running or talking about. As one of the state's requirements, or sorry, the federal government's requirements, the program must primarily benefit low to moderate income individuals or be related to an urgent need or problems to correct slum and blight conditions in the city. Our programs that we run, we try to, we go through the benefit to low and moderate income individuals. So this application that we're applying for is in conjunction with another grant application we submitted to the state for funding on Cherry Street for infrastructure improvements, the streets, sidewalks, and drainage improvements through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant. The CDBG portion that we're applying for now would fund the sewer and water line replacement on Cherry Street as well. We're still waiting word regarding the MVP application. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ted for some more details, and then we'll open it up for questions and comments.
I don't have too much to add. Thanks, Jamie. So I will see if I can. Can I share my screen? Yeah, let's see. We want this one. Just so people, can you see that? Yeah, okay, we'll just leave it like this. So this just gives a very brief overview of the program. It's the Cdbg program that Jamie already described. So I won't get too much into it. The only thing I would add is this year, Easthampton is eligible for a total of $800,000 grant. That's the max allowed under a single application. Not to get too much into details, but usually over a 2-year period, towns and cities are allowed up to 1.35 million between the 2 years. And Easthampton's actually benefiting because they waived that this year. So the city would have been eligible for significantly less because of the current FY20 grant that we have. So it's actually good that that was waived for this year. So anyway, Easthampton is eligible for up to 800,000. I have a brief subject to change, but program budget. I mean, this is a one project application, so it's not particularly complex. And again, that's somewhat subject to change depending on the actual, if we need a little bit more in that construction and engineering piece. And the only other thing I wanted to note was that the application is due Friday, September 10th. In all likelihood, this is a different schedule than it's been for many, many years now. Usually it's these applications are due sometime in late February, early March. That all got mixed around and changed around. So this is a little different than in times past. So in all likelihood, the city would hear by the end of 2021, give or take. And it would be if awarded, it would be a January 1st contract to begin, and 18 months from then to get the project done. Yeah, I mean, we can answer any questions, and I know Diane's on here in case if there are any more technical questions on this project, but I mean, this piece will pay for the water and sewer replacement on Cherry Street. So I will stop sharing that, and if anyone has any questions or comments, unless if anyone from the city wants to throw out anything else on this.
Can I say something real quick? So I'm Jeff Bagg, I'm the city planner. I just would add, I think it was stated, but the community development block grant portion of the application is intended to kind of match and correspond with the MVP application grant that we have out. Jamie mentioned that. We are trying really, really hard to accomplish all of the improvements on Cherry Street at one time. Cherry Street, it was identified in our the DPW's integrated water plan as one of the most dire neighborhoods for sewer replacement. And so a lot of the conversations that we had internally were that we know we need to replace the sewer system underground. And at the same time, we have this opportunity to replace that. And then using the MVP funds, we have the opportunity to use those funds for the top of the street and for green infrastructure. And so, this team, our team internally and with PVPC and the consultant working with us on MVP are trying really hard to kind of marry and blend these two funding sources together to accomplish sort of a big project all at once. And so we need kind of both corresponding parts. That's the most desirable situation in terms of the grants, but the timelines seem to work out. And if we get awarded both, then we will have accomplished quite a bit to put these two kind of distinct funding sources together for this project on Cherry Street. And we hope that it'll be a model kind of for us moving forward to try this, in other locations as well. So I just wanted to add that component.
Hi, Jeff and Ted and everybody. I'm Char Gentes, and I have property on Cherry Street, and I'm happy to hear this because when I lived there for 10 years, I did have the sewer back up in my basement. So I can attest that this project is something that's needed. So I'm just curious in regards to the likelihood, is this, you think is a pretty good go with this block grant? And is there anything that Cherry Street residents can do to ensure it? And if the green money doesn't come through, would that hinder this money happening and this project going forward?
I can jump in for a second, and then if Jamie or Jeff want to add anything. So this being on this public, your comments about the issues that you've actually had, in fact, now that it's being recorded, that's great. And I've taken notes on that, and it will include that the comments and participation from actual residents of where we will be working is very beneficial, particularly on the Cdbg side of things. So in fact, I'd even ask if you are able to, if you just a quick email or something along those lines, and you can send it, if you want to just send it straight to Jamie, that probably is the easiest. I mean, I'll gather everything, but just send it straight to the city. That would be fantastic. As far as likelihood of getting it, I mean, it is a competitive application. The city's been fairly successful over the past number of years in getting these funds. We just received, so the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has been working on and off with Easthampton on Cdbg specifically for many, many years. Usually more in that we do have a housing rehab program that we've been working with, but more directly. So for 18, 19, 20. So for the past 3 years, we've worked in getting these funds, and a lot of the Admiral Street neighborhood. So we're working on Charles Street. That will be our next project this summer, or at the end of the summer. Those were all funded as well. So I am cautiously optimistic. We'll put it that way. As much as one can be in a competitive application, Easthampton is in a they tend to score well in these Cdbg applications. So that's about as much as I can say, without over promising anything. But I'll just reiterate, anything that you or any other residents that have had specific issues, the state wants that information and to hear that. And that's very beneficial to when I put in an application. So like I said, if you could, even if it's just a couple lines or a sentence or two, that'd be awesome.
Happy to.
Yeah,
Okay.
Great.
And
ahead,
Jamie, you can go ahead.
I just want to sort of add to what Ted said about other things that residents can do to help support our application is, and as I said at the beginning, that the block grant funds are designed to help primarily low and moderate income individuals. So we sent out income surveys to every resident along Cherry Street. And it's very important that we get those income survey responses back, as that proves to the state that this neighborhood is eligible for the project. And I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know where we're at with those responses. But if you have one and you're sitting on it and you haven't sent it back, please send it back as soon as you possibly can.
And I will add to that anything that you can send to us would be helpful as far as from the residents of Cherry Street. But to the other part of your question, whether this would be done if we don't get the MVP grant, the one thing about this versus the other way around is actually that the sewer is so deep. So we really need to fix that before we do anything above it. So if we get those funds, we could still use it to do the sewer and the water, and then surface improvements could be done after. You basically have to go from the ground up. So we would be able to use these funds even if we do not get the MVP grant.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Kristen. I also live on Cherry Street, and just want to say that I too have had the sewer back up into our basement. So we've had some problems. So I was really excited to hear that you are working on this project. And also just want to ask if there's any way that we can support the project, even if it means putting out flyers to neighbors, asking them if we can collect the surveys to mail in or support that in any way. I know there's quite a lot of elderly folks that live on the street who maybe haven't gotten them, or if they're coming through email, might not have computer access, might not have support in terms of needing to get those back to you. So if there's any way that we can support you, I would love to support the project as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, any assistance is you being on the street know it. I actually live in Easthampton too, so I know the area in the street well. But you being more familiar with the street and the residents on there, if there are people you see and talk to, just by word of mouth, that's great. There have been at least two mailings, and so if someone didn't respond the first time, they received the second. We didn't send it back to people that had already responded. So we can. I plan to go out to Cherry Street probably early next week, and so just walk the street and knock on doors. But any word of mouth that you can provide, that'd be great as well. So yeah, if there's anything more than that, I'm not promoting anything formal, but if it's, if you see anybody that your neighbors or whatever, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
I'll just add one more thing, Kristen. I think I appreciate you coming to this meeting and offering that. I'm going to take you up on that. Would you be willing to email Jamie, and maybe there's a little coordination? Because I think one of the things is having a person who lives on the street is super valuable, and because your neighbors, and it's going to be, we're all friendly people, but it's going to be a lot more effective if it's someone that they know a little bit and see on the street that helps them understand the income verification form, and what that means. And one of the things that we could probably do is figure out who has not submitted them yet and kind of go over and chat with them. I think a lot of it is not understanding what the form is and, what it means, because it's difficult for them to fill out sometimes because you're talking about your income and that's a sensitive subject, but understanding why we need it to make the neighborhood eligible for the funds is really important. So it's jweb@easthamptonma.gov. That would be for anyone who listens to this after this, as a recording. Emailing Jamie would be great, just a way to connect. We hope that this project moves forward, and we've heard from Char and you, and we know there's others who have had the issues with the sewer. So we are really legitimately trying to solve a problem. And if we can solve the problem and then do green infrastructure on top, it's a total win-win for kind of everybody, especially the people in that neighborhood. So.
Can I ask a question just in case my neighbors ask? I know when we first heard about it, it was kind of halfway down the street. Is that still the case, or is it the whole street now?
So the original project area for stepping back a minute, we applied to the MVP program and received funds to do the design and creation of the construction documents. We are still waiting to hear whether or not they have funded our application for the funding for the construction itself. The initial application for design was looking at the watershed that was the back half of Cherry Street, Lux Ave, and
Mount Tom.
Mount Tom, thank you. And we looking at the sewer infrastructure and how that overlaid with the green infrastructure part of it, the decision was made to extend the green infrastructure down the entirety of Cherry Street and to do the sewer, the entire of Cherry Street, so we can get it all done at once, where Cherry Street was needing the below ground infrastructure more urgently than Mount Tom and Lux.
So basically this project would be all the way from Holyoke Street all the way down to the other end of Cherry Street, so the full length.
Okay, it's just good information to have because I know people will ask me about that. And can you just give me your email again, Jamie? It's jweb@easthamptonma.gov. Okay.
And Kristen, just to reiterate, if you wanted to send an email too about any issues you've had, that would be super helpful.
Okay, to
Put
the
my-
same email.
I put my email in the chat.
Oh, great.
So-
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions, concerns about this application? They may-
I'm just curious, if it does go through, what would be the timing and how long would residences be affected by, sewer, and how's that gonna work? I'm thinking optimistically too.
So basically, if we get really either of these grants, we'd be looking at one construction season. It would somewhat depend on whether we get one or both, but your sewer will be functioning the whole time. It's just getting in and out of your driveways, things like that. And there may be like one little, going from one sewer to the other, your actual residence, but it would be like one quick thing. One day for, let's say, an hour, and they'd let you know at that point.